My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor in South Central Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And the purpose of today's video is to answer a question I get fairly often, and that is, what about the bears? Okay, because I know a lot of people are initially worried when they're coming up here about, hey, what happens if I run into a bear? Just how dangerous are they? What do I do if I run into one? So we're going to be talking about that today, and really kind of diving into some things you can do about it. And I'll kind of give some disclosures that I am not by any stretch of the imagination an expert on bear behavior or proper this and that. This is just going to be from my experience and the stuff that I've heard from people who live up here about encountering them. I've not had any really intense, like near-death bear encounters. So I mean, depending how you look at it, that's either because I really know what I'm doing, or maybe that just means I have no credibility here. I'll let you decide. But before we get started, do make sure you give this video a like. If you haven't done so already, do subscribe. And without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about what to do about bears up here in Alaska. So there really are two topics here that we need to get into, and that is, number one, you need to focus on avoidance. And what do you do when you actually run into a bear? So the first thing when you're trying to avoid bears is you need to be loud, okay? If you're going with a group of people, that's great. Just be talking back and forth. Hopefully it's not a lot of introverts out there that aren't saying anything to each other, because that's not gonna really help very much. You need to be talking, you need to be making noise. Bear bells work fairly well if you don't mind them. Clanging some stuff together every now and then definitely does help. Me personally, I spend a lot of time out in the woods and running in the mountains on my own, and I actually do bring a whistle with me because that is unearthly loud, and it's definitely going to scare anything away within a couple of miles. So just gonna blast that off every now and then, and you're good to go. Another added benefit is that if you don't have bells with you and you're by yourself, your other option is to yell. And if you're out there for an extended period of time, it's not really you're gonna get hoarse pretty quickly, as I found out. So bell or a whistle works great. Now, the other thing I would say is you need to make sure you're making noise every time you come around a corner, okay? And the reason for that is you might have made some noise just a couple minutes ago. Now you're turning like a little turn or bend in the trail, and all the noise that you made before was probably blocked by the topography that's in the way. This is very pronounced in some areas, just depending how the topography is laid out. But next time you're hiking around looking at waterfalls or something like that, realize, hey, we couldn't even hear the water behind like this little hill. As soon as we turned this corner or got up over this little ridge, super loud, and it was right there and bigger than life. So same thing, and you need to keep in mind the same thing really does apply when you're on the trail and you're making noise. So make noise as you're coming around the corners. Next thing I would say, be really aware of your surroundings, okay? So do not pop in headphones, okay? It's really not kind of the environment you want to just completely zone out and not be aware of what's going on. You need to be able to hear, and you need to be able to like see everything that's on the ground, okay? Obviously, be looking for tracks, be looking for scat, AKA bear poop. You gotta be looking for that. If everything looks really just bedded down in a specific area, okay, it might be a moose, might be a bear. Let's kind of be aware of that kind of stuff, and just really also be aware of kind of the smell also. Bears have a really, really strong, pungent kind of a smell. It's like wet dog times 10 easily. So be really aware of all of that as you're going out there. Also, if you're by yourself, avoid heavily wooded areas where you have low visibility, and also avoid tall grass if you can possibly avoid it. And hopefully you're not out there by yourself with all that going on, and also you have snacks that have a really strong aroma to it, because that's the next one. Avoid bringing snacks along that have that strong smell, because I mean obviously a bear's sense of smell is very strong, and if you're going out there with stuff like beef jerky and tuna for whatever reason, that's going to give off a very strong smell, and you're probably going to have some company. So yeah, avoid that. This next one's a little obvious, but be talking to people who are on the trail coming from the direction that you're going towards. And just ask them, hey, any bear activity up there? Don't just take it for granted that people are going to volunteer that information. Some Alaskans kind of view bears more as just stray dogs really at this point. Most people, I'm going to say 99% of them, are very good on kind of letting people know, hey, we saw some signs up there or saw a bear a ways off, and they'll be pretty good on letting you know. Others, they've been up here long enough, they see bears and it's no big deal. Won't even register until, you might be a mile or so down the trail. So just make sure you're being proactive and you're asking them. Ultimately, you're responsible for your safety and not them. So be proactive, ask questions. Also, just be aware of what time of the year it is and sometimes what day of the week it is. And what I mean by this is if it's mating season, then bears are going to be a little bit more aggressive. If it's right after, all the bears have gotten out of hibernation, then they're going to be pretty aggressive. If they're trying to fatten up for the winter time, they're going to be pretty aggressive. So just be aware of some of these peak times. Now I said time of the week also, and the reason for that is the one time I ran into bears when I was out for a run, where I could actually see one anyway, was when I was running in town in Eagle River. And not really where I expected to be running into a bear, but came around the turn in the road, boom, there it was. And nothing happened, gave it its space, let it go across the way, gave it a little bit of time, and it kind of took off. But the thing that really drew it into town was because it was trash day. So be extra aware on days like trash day, where there's just going to be a lot of temptations for a bear to come into town. So be aware of that. Also, if you get between a bear and their cub, that's going to be a problem. Obviously, super aggressive at that point. That's not an urban myth, but a myth. It's very real. Don't get between a bear, a sow, and its cub. And the other thing you need to be aware of is if you get between a bear and its kill, that's going to be a problem also, because sometimes the bears will actually kill something, bury it, and come back to it later. If they come back and they see you between, messing around with its kill, that's going to be a problem. A friend of mine and I actually went and ran a Crow Pass. I think it was actually about a month and a half ago. Time flies, but we were out there. And we came around a corner and saw all this moose hair just laid out onto the ground. And we both got pretty quiet for a second, and then we got really loud and got the heck out of there because, yeah, that's not good. So that was probably a bear kill, unless some moose suddenly just exploded like confetti and got its fur all over the place. There's no blood or anything either. So. But yeah, that was probably a bear kill, and the meat was buried somewhere close, and it was a good idea to get out of there. So be extra aware of your surroundings in times like that. Speaking of going for runs in the mountains, I actually do have an Instagram page. Link for that is going to be down below, for Realtor Alaska, in which I kind of take pictures as I'm out running, getting ready for some ultra marathons, kind of in the mountains and up here in Alaska. And I do take pictures as I'm going along. So if you want to see some scenery that only very few people get to see, do make sure you check that out. That's again going to be in the description section down below. Now let's go and jump into what you do when you actually run into a bear. So I'm going to say first off, I have never really had an intense bear encounter before, because I subscribe to kind of the avoidance model very, very heavily in my encounters with them. But that being said, there are definitely some different schools of thought as to what you should do as far as what your first line of defense needs to be. So the two camps are, okay, we're either going to bring bear spray or bring some kind of a gun. If it's bear spray, that's usually the camp that I fall into, and the reason for that is that it's easy. It's very simple, because when you're stressed, do not think you're going to be able to do something complicated. And it does not take a whole lot of skill to be able to spray the bear in the face with bear spray. and it's going to be pretty potent, and that's going to give you a solid half-hour head start to get the heck out of there. And it's going to be pretty incapacitating. The reason I don't really like carrying a firearm, and I'm not against it, okay? I'm going to say that first off. I'm not against taking a firearm. Just make sure you are an expert in whatever firearm that you plan on using, and it has the potential to actually take the bear down, okay? If you're going out there with a little .22 and you plan on shooting a bear with it, then that's good job. You just pissed off a bear and you have zero way of actually taking it down. So you got to take something a little heavier if you actually want to get the job done. Probably like a 44, something like that would probably be a little bit more in line. I'm not much of a gun guy, but if you're planning on doing a gun, if it were me, I'd pack something with a little bit more heat. Now, you can also take a gun if you just plan on using it as noise and scaring it away. Depending on the bear though, that might just piss it off even more. So at a minimum, even if you do take a gun, I would still take bear spray. Now, what do you do when you actually run into a bear? Well, the first thing is, and keep in mind, this is not coming from my personal experience, and go do your own research on this, because, I mean, keep in mind, I'm just a guy on the internet, on YouTube talking to you, so go hear from the experts. But coming around the corner, there's a bear, you gotta stay calm, okay? Don't freak out and startle it even more, okay? So stay calm, and if you can, slowly start backing away. Don't turn your back to it. And more importantly, I hate that I have to say this, but don't grab your phone and start taking pictures or videos of it before you know you're in a safe spot, okay? Get away. This isn't the time to start trying to become viral, okay? Everyone's seen pictures of bears, okay? It's not really the high-ranking thing that everyone's looking for out there on social media anyway, okay? So get away, and then if it's still a decent picture, take some pictures then. So start slowly backing up and don't turn your back to it. That's step one. The next thing I would say is get your bear spray or get your gun out, okay? So if you've got bear spray, it's time to take off the little clip. Don't be threatening with it. Your motions need to be slow and predictable because you don't want to startle it. And if you've got a gun, I mean kind of the same thing, okay? You're not trying to scare it. You are trying to slowly back away because that's the first thing you want to do. You don't want to escalate it because things can go south pretty quickly. So get the bear spray out, get the gun out if you have it, and do it in a nice, smooth, even way without, you're not in a gunfight like trying to see you can draw the 6-shooter the fastest, okay? Okay, now in the event that this doesn't work and you've tried avoidance, you still ran into it, you tried slowly backing away, and you've been as slow as possible, you haven't turned your back to it, and it's a pissed off bear and it's coming for you, then it's time to take action. So if you've got bear spray, shoot for its face, specifically like the nose and eyes, and hit it at as much as you got, with the bear spray. Don't hit it, and take off like hell. Like run as fast as you can. Like I said, I think you've got about upwards of 30 minutes, but if there's a pissed off bear out there, then I wouldn't necessarily bank on that, okay? Just get the heck out of there as quickly as possible. If you've got a gun, then you need to go talk to somebody else about the best place to kind of try to shoot in order to either deter it, because that's obviously option number one, and somebody who's a little bit more versed in that strategy would probably be a good source. But you can either try to shoot to scare it away and try to avoid escalation even further, or it's time to shoot to kill. And I can't tell you specifically where that line is, and you probably need to go check something else out there. So that is really worst case scenario though, and it's very, very rare things actually escalate to that point. Usually bears want to see you even less than you want to see them, and as long as you respect their space, they're going to be fine. And as long as you're keeping your situational awareness up and you're taking responsibility for your own safety and those that are with you, you're going to be fine. Now, Also, what I would say is there's always not 100% like risk-free option up here in Alaska, regardless what you do. If you're not willing to accept any level of risk at all when you're doing anything, then Alaska probably isn't going to be that fun. If you are willing to accept that though, there's a ton of things you can do and you're really going to enjoy your time up here. So I sure hope this was useful today. It's definitely a topic that's probably near and dear to your heart. If you are moving up here for the first time, you're kind of concerned about bears. If you do have any other questions, do make sure you post those in the comments section down below, and be happy to answer those as best I can. If you want to reach out to me directly, please do so through my Facebook page. Link for that is going to be in the description section down below. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.